This is World Comics Review, and these are disgusting, so don't buy them. Not even that cheap either. If I'd walked a little bit further I could have got the cheaper and nicer ones in the other supermarket. Oh well. 360 something yen. The other one's only 299. Anyway, this is what we came here for today. This is a reprint of this is a reprint of number 27 of Detective Comics from May 1939. And this reprint is itself from February 2000. So yeah, Detective Comics used to have 64 pages, so I knew DC was going downhill, but I didn't know they'd gone downhill that far. Anyway, yes, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. This was the first story of Batman, or the Batman as it used to be called. And yeah, it's been gone over many times now that early Batman was very heavily inspired by the Shadow. And this was actually pretty much a direct lift of a Shadow pulp story from around the same time. So some people involved in a syndicate to manufacture chemicals are being bumped off one by one, and it turns out that one of the minor partners in the syndicate stands to inherit everything if they all die. So he's been murdering them one by one, and Batman clears everything up, and he punches a guy who falls over the edge and lands in some acid, which is been used ever since to defend any time somebody makes a tone-deaf movie where Batman kills someone. It's like, well, he always had a no-kill rule. He did it once in 1939. Much like how people always say that American comics were always political, and they can provide precisely one example from 1940 and one from around 1979. So apparently a single reference that's really old means something was always true. Good thing Batman didn't use a gun in this issue, although apparently he did in later issues. So yeah, most of the time somebody talking about Detective Comics number 27 would begin and end with these few pages, but this is World Comics Review, where all comics are treated equally, so I'm going to carry on. So this is a Tenderfoot, which is like a joke story about the Boy Scouts, and something you can advert disguised as a comic, send off to get an accordion. Right, so yeah, most people would begin and end with Batman, but I'm going to go through the entire comics. So yeah, Detective Comics used to be a 64-page anthology with multiple stories and many characters. This format kind of went out of fashion in the USA pretty quickly, but remained the standard format in the UK for many years, and still is the standard format in the Phoenix, which is the only current adventure comic weekly in the UK. Still has multiple stories in each issue, I think. Anyway, the Phoenix might have finished by now, might have been cancelled by now, I'm not sure. So yeah, this is Speed Saunders, another detective who looks like he owes very much to what do you call it, the yellow guy, Dick Tracy. Just a bright yellow coat, although it's mostly to do with the technical limitations of the time and not a stylistic choice. So he's investigating some Arab killers, I guess. Yep, just a tone story, not a full colour story. This is often seen in British adventure anthologies too. There'd be a story with just red and pink, or blue and light blue, occasionally green and light green. It's a cowboy story, cowboy who's a detective. This is Detective Comics, so they're all kind of crime investigators in some way. Spy, by the guys who created Superman. Did a story without superpowers, imagine that. So yes, this is a guy called Spy who is a spy. Also solving some crimes. Somebody's poisoning people. He lets himself be captured by the bad guys, distracts them, swaps over the bananas so they eat a poisoned one, and then fights his way out. So this is the Crimson Avenger, who looks like he owes even more to the Shadow than the other Batman does. So yes, this is the Shadow, but he dresses in red instead of black, and yeah, he's got 2 guns. Criminals are holding up a surgery for some reason, and he's chasing them down. Big long fight scene. Appears to have semi-superhuman strength and breaks his way out of some ropes. Emerges from the shadows and blows the criminals away. Text story. Short detective text story, just 2 pages, and that's 2 US comic size pages as well. So this is yeah, as I said, I think back in the day in the USA, if something was all comic strips, it was counted as an entertainment publication, but if it had at least 2 text pages, it was counted as an educational publication. So it got a lower postal rate, so they always put a text story in. There's the Daisy air rifle, also extensively advertised in British publications of the time. Bruce Nelson, another kind of private detective, this one in New Orleans, kind of that Batman style image. Whole New Orleans culture, the heavy French influence, the voodoo Haitian influence and stuff like that. Devil smoke. So adaptation of Fu Manchu into a kind of semi-comic strip, semi-text. I think this started in issue 1 of Detective Comics and it's still going, although that would have been over 2 years later. And you know, Chinese characters look completely ridiculous. This is Fu Manchu himself. It's I think the original story said that Fu Manchu was kind of more green than yellow. This is obviously like not the yellow of real Chinese people, but you know what I mean. But yeah, they said he was kind of green and had second set of eyelids that blink sideways. So I always thought Fu Manchu should have been taken on by Doctor Who, but yeah, they wouldn't have the balls to do that these days, would they? Flatfoot Flanagan, a joke police story. Orange police car with bright green writing. Phantom of Disguise character, and this illustration owes a fair bit to something else. So yeah, speaking of Batman ripping the shadow off, this illustration of Cosmo, the Phantom of Disguise, owes more than a little to somebody else. It's pretty much a trace, almost. So yeah, it's a guy is good at disguise, disguises himself as another ridiculous looking Chinese stereotype. Goes and speaks Chinese, apparently, just squiggles. And he no Chinaman. Plainclothes Pete, so kind of a comedy detective story. It's a similar style to Popeye. It was I don't know who did Popeye. Alga. Is that the guy who did Popeye? Is it a pen name? Very similar style. Anyway, at least to my eyes. I haven't actually looked at Popeye for ages. So yeah, comedy detective chasing somebody down. Another Siegel and Schuster detective story. Slam Bradley, manhunters getting into a car chase. This guy looks like Tintin. It's like this is what Tintin looked like when he was 45. They fly off to the mountains somewhere, Alaska, Canada, oh Switzerland, okay. Yeah, I guess you could fly transatlantic in them days, it just took ages. It cost a hell of a lot. End up on the mountains, they put him in a toboggan and they're going to push him off the edge. But they think he's dead, but they don't see the body, and he's like, oh, I just jumped off the toboggan before it fell over the cliff. Yeah, there we are. that's the explanation. Oh no, he's tied on a toboggan and he's going to fall off a cliff. Oh no, I just jumped off. Whatever. Right. So, yeah, so now this guy, globe-trotting manhunter, chases people to the ends of the earth, and yeah, falling off a cliff in Switzerland. Where have I heard that before? So yeah, that's the first, no, not the first Batman in the 27th Detective Comics, which used to be a 64-page anthology with many different interesting crime busters. Get back to this, DC. You never know, you might not have to fire so many people. Who am I kidding? And yeah, in the thumbnail I also had this. So yeah, Batman 400 from 1986. So yeah, both of these cost me 100 yen each. That's a really small comic event, so I might as well explain a bit about how I came about them. So yeah, it was I was walking past one of my favourite kind of lesser known comic shops in Osaka called Banana Crepe, which is in a really old building and really hard to find. You just like go through a door and up some really steep stairs, and on the, I think it's 4 floors, and the middle floor has some like abandoned units that just aren't being used at all, but you can still walk down the corridor and look through the windows. And yeah, you go up to the top floor, and that's where Banana Crepe is. And yeah, I was passing Banana Crepe and saw this poster in the window. Not in the window, I saw this poster on the wall advertising a manga Shotengai, and Shotengai is the name of the covered shopping streets they have in Japan. So I went up there thinking that so the building it's in has kind of 5 floors, and one floor is a big nightclub, one floor is kind of a huge kind of banquet hall. I guess you can rent out for big corporate dues and get food. And then the second floor is loads of really tiny bars, kind of like a big rough long rectangle of corridors that you can actually go up into any time, but it doesn't fill up with homeless people because reasons and Japan. And yeah, this big rectangle of corridors has loads of really tiny bars in it. And yeah, I thought that it was going to be like a big comic convention in the banquet hall or the nightclub, but they said it's on the 2nd floor, which I thought was a bit weird. But I went up there, and the convention, such as it was actually inside one of the tiny bars, and had about 4 tables. And yeah, mostly Japanese stuff obviously, but one guy had a couple of boxes of American comics for 100 yen each, and I saw a significant Batman issue and reprint of the first story, so I thought, why not get those? They'd make good videos. I haven't read this one yet, but it looks awesome. He teams up with the Joker, kind of. So yeah, that was Batman and DC when they were good. A long time ago now.